Supply and demand in the Forex market. We tend to borrow this terminology from different professionalism or from different fields. But once it comes to Forex, supply and demand mean two different things. The markets have a tendency of moving up and down. And they usually move up and down due to the buyers and the sellers. Now, the concentration of buyers, the concentration of sellers is what leads to supply and demand. So you might be wondering, Isma, why are you talking about supply and demand? Because in the first place, we thought you're coming here to let us know when should we buy, when should we sell, how should we buy, how should we sell. So the ideal most important thing when it comes to support, when it comes to supply and demand, it will always turn you back to a point where you particularly need to know where to buy. Their concentration, whether the supply or demand leads to a particular entry in the market. Like say for instance, what makes supply is actually a selling pressure concentration at a particular point. And once we identify this area, then we know that whenever market comes back, it will have to react about this particular point because the banks have already identified this particular zone, as we're going to see in this video. I'm making it simple, easier, but also full of practical narrative, practical ideologies, practical visibility. So I'm going to make this video practically in simple terms. Now, from there, once the market is associated or has a concentration of buyers at a particular point, then we consider that area as a demand. We always say, or we have always looked at the law of demand, that the higher the price, there will always be an increase in demand. So once price tends to gain in value, it means that there are a lots of buyers, and there are buyers that will always contribute to the bullish movement in the market. So without any wastage of time, I'm going to take you directly onto this PC of ours, as you can see, and we illustrate, we happen to see how do you identify, how do you draft your supply and demand, how does it even look like? Because in the first place, you're telling us it is a concentration area for buyers and sellers at a particular point, and how we basically supposed to use it to have a high quality trade setup entry for this particular aspect of supply and demand. If you haven't subscribed onto this channel, please do such that you enjoy the content that we happen to release. You can also go to other social platforms of ours, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Just type in FXKampala. You find such amazing affirmative information. You can also click onto the bell such that you are among those few people that are notified whenever we come out to release such content to do with Forex. Like I said, we're not wasting any single minute when it comes to our aspect of supply and demand. We have already defined what supply is and what demand is. Now, it's time now for us to know, for us to see what they practically mean. I'll take you directly on our chart, and let me first enlarge this. I'll take you directly onto our chart. This is TradingView. I also create a video specifically to show you how you can trade on TradingView. Personally, I trade on TradingView, and I don't need MT4, I don't need MT5. But again, I also trade, I have accounts where I trade on MT5. But then, trading on TradingView is one of the easiest way because the platform is rich with attributes that can enable you easily and flexible for market analysis and entries into the market. So the pair that we're looking at is Australian dollar, US dollar, as you can see. We're in the 15 minutes time frame. Like I said earlier, supply and demand are basically concentration areas, or they are basically zone that are particular where most people are literally looking forward to buying. So when we say demand, we're looking at that area where we have concentration, or we're looking at that zone where most people, where most institution banks are actually placing their buy orders. In the due process that whenever market comes back to these areas, the lorries have to respect and react against this particular area, and hence moving in the appropriate expected direction to be. Like for instance, So the area that is down here, we always consider it as a demand zone or a demand level or a demand concentration area, like you can see. Because in the beginning, the market moved away from this particular area, and in the first place, it was just a mere support level. But then, since we have concentration of banks, we have interests of smart money along this particular area. So once it tends to come to be a zone, and we have bunch of buying orders there that can either be pending because there is an intellectual anticipation that this market will have to come back down by the institutions. So it's therefore the reason as to why it came back down to this particular level. Now we are saying that the moment this particular area, this particular line or support, previous support, becomes or has huge bundles or a collection of orders by the smart money, and it then comes to be as a zone, then it now ceases to be a support and now comes to be as a demand zone or a demand area of concentration. Now, what causes this is always the buyers, and therefore never market will come, like you can see the projections that I made here. So as the market is coming down, coming up, it will respect this area and then comes back here, and we shall experience the reaction. And therefore, if you're someone that is watching this video and you've come to have this idea, to have this knowledge, then therefore this means that we're expecting that every never market approximates to this level, come there and then and make sure that you place your orders that can be pending orders in relation to the long position, because we expect now the reaction to be bullish, and therefore you can buy not because of anything but because of the respect caused by this particular support, this particular demand zone. And therefore this is when it comes to be more important, this is when it comes to be more useful. Why? Because it can ideally tell to us where market is going, and therefore once we respect what it is saying, what it is communicating, and therefore we can now buy and make profits of the market. Now we replicate the same reference, the same model, the same ideology as when it comes to the supply. Supply specifically means delivery or quantity. We're looking at quantity now. Once there is quantity, it means that the sales are going to be low. Why? And therefore they're going to be low, and therefore this means that there is going to be reduction in the number of people that are buying this, because we have quantity. Having quantity means that now we have a lot more people that are willing now, a few people rather, that are willing to sell, and therefore what will happen will be that there has to be reduction in the prices, therefore such that people can now buy more and more and more, because probably there is higher supply. Now what happens when there is higher supply? The prices are going to be reduced, as you can see, and therefore this area is marked to be as the area of supply, and therefore it's tested the first time, and the moment it is being tested by the smart money, and you see whenever market approximates to this level, the market was coming down, and therefore it is respected. I believe I will not repeat myself, like I said, when it is when the reaction is to be there, like it was on the demand, and therefore we replicate, like I said, the same principles, the same ideas around the resistance, around the supply zone. So initially it was a resistance, and it came to be a zone. It came to be a supply zone, because there were participation of smart money along this particular point, and therefore it came now to be a zone and area, and therefore now ceased to be a resistance and turned to be a supply. Turned to be a supply. I believe it is more important that you get to know that along this particular areas you shall always be looking out for either breakouts or sell or short positions, as in the forex market. With regards to the supply and demand, I think I've explored, I've exploited, and I've stressed enough at this particular juncture. Allow me stop from here. Hope you've learned and enjoyed this particular video. Share it to your friends and family such that they can also benefit from this educational content, but again, financial in the disguise of aspect. Have a good day. Enjoy.